This is the Transforming Anxiety podcast with Kelly Hanlon McCormick, and today is episode number 235, Polyvagal Theory with Deb Dana. Welcome to Transforming Anxiety. I'm your host, Kelly McCormick. I'm a mom to 2 boys, a wife, friend, daughter, and sister, and I'm a certified life coach, yoga teacher, and soon-to-be mindfulness meditation teacher. I'm no stranger to anxiety, and I'm here to teach you how to manage your mind and your emotions so that you too can transform anxiety into calm, peace, and whatever you want for your life. I'm so glad you're here. Hey there, welcome in today. Well, I have another great guest for you today. I've been excited about this one for months, literally. I had to book her months out because she's a little busy, because she's a little, more than a little, wonderful, and her work is so important. And I know I say this about a lot of people. I'll continue to say about it a lot of people. It's true about a lot of people. But I'm talking with Deb Dana today, and she really stands alone this way because she works in the world of polyvagal theory. And this is just such a vital piece of understanding and taking care of ourselves, particularly when we're working with our nervous systems and when we're working with emotions like anxiety, experiences like relationships, and even past experiences like trauma. This is just really vital work. So here's a little bit about Deb. Deb Dana is a clinician, consultant, author, and speaker specializing in complex trauma. Her work is focused on using the lens of polyvagal theory to understand and resolve the impact of trauma in our lives. Deb's work shows how an understanding of polyvagal theory is applicable across the board to relationships, mental health, and trauma. She delves into the intricacies of how we can all use an understanding of the organizing principles of polyvagal theory to change the ways we navigate our daily lives. Deb is well known for translating polyvagal theory into a language and application that is both clear and accessible, and for her significant contribution pioneering rhythm of regulation methodology, tools, techniques, and practices which continue to open up the power of polyvagal theory for professionals and curious people from diverse backgrounds and all walks of life. Deb believes that we all benefit when we have a basic understanding of the ways the nervous system works and learn how to become active operators of this essential system. Following this passion has led her to offering workshops in partnership with groups and communities outside of the clinical arena and bringing the polyvagal perspective to the ordinary and sometimes extraordinary experiences of daily living. All right, so let's get into it. Here's my conversation with the amazing Deb Dana. All right. Oh, welcome, Deb. It's so wonderful to meet you and to be here with you in this space, just chatting aloud.
To be here with you,
Yeah.
and the dog.
And the dog, yeah, if you're watching on YouTube, you get to, she's wagging her tail even.
She is, she's saying hi. I love it.
Poppy's here with us, yes.
Mhm.
Well, let's start at the very beginning. We're going to get into some of the books and resources and offerings that you have, but it's all anchored in this one thing. So I thought we would just start at the beginning. And I wanted to ask you, what the heck is polyvagal theory? For some people who haven't heard of this.
Yeah, it is the most commonly asked first question, certainly. What the heck is polyvagal theory? So let's see if we can do it concisely. I should be better at it by now. I've had a lot of practice. So polyvagal theory was developed by Stephen Porges, my dear friend and colleague, and his work has revolutionized the way we think about how we are human. And so I like to say it's a theory of how we are human. Mm-hmm. And it comes with 3 basic organizing principles that once we understand those, we kind of understand the theory and we can dive into the practice. So the first word we want to think about is a word neuroception. And that's a word that Steve created because there wasn't a word that described how your nervous system takes in information. Perception describes how your brain does, but the nervous system does it differently. So he created the word neuroception. And neuroception uses 3 pathways to listen and make an assessment, safe or not safe. It uses an embodied pathway, so it's always listening inside our bodies. It uses an environmental pathway outside in the world around us. And then what we call a between pathway, which is the relational pathway. And so micro moment to micro moment, your nervous system is receiving information through those pathways and then moves you in and out of states of being, which takes us to the second organizing principle, which is hierarchy. So neuroception moves you somewhere on this beautiful hierarchy that Steve defined for us. And at the top of the hierarchy is this state of, it's called ventral, but it's a state of regulation, connection, right? And that's what you and I are in right now as we are engaging. We can communicate, connect, be together safely, right? Or safe enough, I like to say. I used to say safe, but now safe enough, right? Because it's hard to find true, abundant safety, but safe enough is all our nervous system needs. So top of the hierarchy, this place of connection, communication, regulation. When the world feels overwhelming, the first survival state we step into is the sympathetic nervous system that most of us know as fight and flight. And that's where anxiety lives. That's where anger lives. So that's the pathway that tries to help keep us safe by taking us into anger and anxiety. If that pathway doesn't resolve the problem, so to speak, and get us to come back to that place of safety and regulation, the other survival state, which is at the bottom of the hierarchy, is called dorsal, and that's the place of shutdown and disconnection. So in sympathetic anxiety, you're flooded with energy, disorganized, chaotic energy that doesn't get us anywhere. In dorsal, disconnect, shut down, all that energy drains from your body. And so you're in a place where you have no energy to do anything, right? So that's hierarchy. And we move in that predictable way, which is a lovely thing about Steve's theory. You move from regulation to fight and flight, anger, anxiety, and then to dorsal disconnect, shut down. And then to come back, you have to bring some energy back in. But the trouble is we don't want to go back into anger and anxiety, right? And for many people, that's what happens. The energy begins to come back. Oh, I'm anxious again. I shut down, I'm anxious. I shut down, I'm anxious. And that's a loop that we get into. So we have to learn how to travel the other pathway that just lets us feel some energy come in and brings us back to safety and connection. So we can talk about that. But the third organizing principle that we need to remember is co-regulation, right? And that's what we're doing. That's what you and Poppy are doing, right? That's what, if Poppy's face is here, what we can all do with Poppy, that sense of co-regulating with another mammal, with another being. And our nervous systems long to be in that place of connecting safely with others. It is the biological expectation when we're born, right? Our nervous system expects that we will be met by another nervous system that's regulated, right? And for many of us, that didn't happen, right? And that can be the beginning of a pathway of being stuck in survival, right? If I don't have someone who helps me regulate, maybe I end up in that anxious pathway or that angry pathway or that shutdown pathway more often than not, right? It doesn't mean that the pathway of regulation and connection isn't there, but maybe I haven't accessed it often or recently. Even maybe recently you've been stuck in anxiety and haven't found your way back to what I call your home in safety and regulation. Right. And I do want to say that every human has a home there because your nervous system is built with that pathway. Yes. Right. And our nervous system, I think, knows how to get us there once we begin to uncover those pathways again.
Right. That was a great introduction. It does sound like you've done this a few times before.
Look at that. Love it.
So polyvagal theory, there's these 3 organizing principles, right? The neuroception, hierarchy, and co-regulation. We're going to dig into a little bit of that as we go along here. I wanted to touch on, this is something that you say, this is the very beginning of your book, which you have a few of. This is Anchored. And again, if you're on YouTube, you can see You know how I mark things up with all my Post-it notes.
A lot of Post-its there.
There's a lot of good stuff in here. But you say this at the very beginning. You write, when the inner workings of our biology are a mystery, we feel as if we're at the mercy of unknown, unexplainable, and unpredictable experiences.
Yeah.
Once we know how our nervous system works, we can work with it. So as we learn the art of befriending our nervous system, we learn to become active operators of this essential system. So that's, as you kind of have opened this up and explained it, it demystifies, because I think so many of us, we feel it, we know exactly what it feels like, right? To go into that anxious, angry fight or flight. We know exactly what it feels like to go into that dorsal shutdown, but it still feels somewhat mysterious to us because we don't have the owner's manual for our nervous system.
Right. And I do think that that is something that we all need. We need that owner's manual. We need to know how it works, because it's a fairly simple way it works. It's not easy to then operate it, but it's simple to understand. And once I understand, I have a chance of being able to regulate instead of going from a bit of worry. We have a continuum. Maybe mine is, a bit of worry, and then I go to some anxiety, and then I perseverate, and then I end up somewhere in panic. So before I get to the end result of panic, if I can catch it at the tiny worry that begins, then I can work with it. I can even work with it when it moves along. When it gets to panic, it's really hard to work with. Right. But along the way, when I can begin to track and notice, oh, this is what's happening, and have some resources to reach for to help me return to regulation, then I'm good. And I want to say, it's not that we want to get rid of the energy, right? We don't want to say, well, just calm down. Just forget being anxious. Just stop. Right.
If only that worked.
Right. Yes. But see, my brain is not in charge. When I've gone into that survival pathway, the brain goes into hypoactive mode. So all of those resources that I might reach for when I'm, regulated are somewhere else. They're like beyond reach, So what we want to do is be able to track and notice the subtle signs that I'm entering into that place, because then I still can reach for the resources. And then when I'm in that pathway, I can have written down resources, because my brain may not be working so well, but I can grab that resource, read it. Oh, right, that works. Right. There are lots of ways to work with it, but when we don't know, or when we haven't pre-planned, or we haven't tried on for size what works for us, we are at the mercy of our nervous system. And remember, its goal is to keep you safe. And so no matter what it does, as crazy as it feels to be stuck in a panic attack, or stuck in that never-ending anxiety, worry, that loop, your nervous system is simply enacting response because it feels you're in danger. And that's the response it's chosen. So in some ways, the befriending is, sort of being compassionate around, okay, I'm stuck in this worry loop. It's because my nervous system is trying to help me. Right. So when we can have some self-compassion, it helps as well.
For sure. So it's like there's this scaffolding of, okay, every human, this is how the nervous system operates. But then you said something important, which was to get into the finer details and to recognize your own personal pattern. And it's like, for Kelly, here's how it goes, right? For Deb, maybe it looks like this. And then as you become keyed into that, which again, we'll talk some more about some of these things in a little bit, then you're able, like you said, to catch it almost before it's like before it totally avalanches and you're down the path of panic.
Right. Like, I'm, my anger pathway, I really know what the first flavor of that is for me. It's when I describe it as a bit of crankiness. And when I notice that crankiness, I go, oh, I'm heading down that path. It won't look pretty at the end, but cranky's okay. I can manage cranky, and I can figure out, oh, so what's bringing that alive?
Yes.
Right? My first flavor of anxiety is probably a sort of I call it a niggling worry. It was just a tiny little, there's something that just begins to to catch my attention and I can't quite let it go. What's yours?
Yeah, I would say mine is I start to get a little fidgety.
Yeah.
And I can kind of notice I can't quite sit still. I can't quite settle. My mind is jump, 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 jump. So same, I notice I'm like, okay. Because at that point, I still feel resourced enough to pause and say, okay, Kel.
Yes.
Something's happening.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
But if that runs away, we're just along for the ride at that point. You got to go all the way around the horn.
Right.
Until you can come back, almost because your body hits the hard reset button for you.
And even when you come back, you're flooded with those neurochemicals, cortisol, adrenaline. Even when I'm back, my body takes a while to digest, dissolve, release all of those. So it can feel like, well, wait a minute, I'm back, but my body is taking a while to catch up, right? Yeah.
So if you've ever, and I've experienced this probably hundreds of times at this point, it's almost that crash at the end where I feel so tired. There's a sense of like having, just what you're saying, having to work through all the neurotransmitters, all the hormones, all the chemicals that come with that more activated state. It isn't just a matter of like, oh, I feel better, like in my mind and my emotions. You have to wait for the biology of your body to get on board, right?
Yeah. And so we track it and say, oftentimes our story will begin to change, and I'll begin to come back to feeling, okay, I'm here, and I can, it's no longer anxiety, and now it's I can problem solve. Right. Even though in my body, I might still be feeling some of that. So that's an interesting place to be and compare. When is it that my body's doing this and my brain is gone on a run? And when is it my body's doing this, my brain it's still here, able to problem solve with me or figure something out. Yeah. So there's these subtle differences that we play with.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Along these same lines, we talked about the 3 principles. There's also these 3 elements for well-being, right? That I wanted to touch on. So add this to the principles of polyvagal theory, right? Context, choice, and connection. Let's talk about that a little bit.
And context is an important one because we need to have enough information surrounding whatever the moment is in order for our nervous system to begin to feel safe enough to have us be there, right? So without context, we often go right into worry, right? Without context, I'm somewhere else. I can't be here because it doesn't, I don't know what's happening here, right? And then the right amount of context, because again, everything is individual. There are times when I only need to know like 3 bullet points and okay, I got it. And other times when I need a lot more context to feel, okay, now I understand what's going on and where we need to go. So with the nervous system, it's never a one and done thing. It's never, this is the way you do it, right? We have an outline. If only. We have an outline. The 3 principles and the 3 elements are the outline, but within that we do this. And so that's what we need to do. So context is so important. And I think, as a therapist, I think I had to learn to give more context to my clients. Like I knew where I was going and what the process might look like, but they needed to know. And I wasn't trained to do that. I think as parents, we sometimes don't do that with our kids, right? And context helps calm the nervous system, right? It helps give it the information it's needing. And then sometimes are you around somebody who has to give you like the entire book rather than I just want the paragraph and they want it's like no thing. So we have to remember that. Like how much context do you need?
Right.
So that's important too. So that's context. And then choice is the same. We need to know what's the right amount of choice. No choice, the nervous system will go into a survival state, right? Because it feels trapped. It'll take you to sympathetic and then it'll take you to dorsal. When we are trapped with no escape, the nervous system will take us to dorsal, right? Because that's the path of last resort.
Yep.
So choice, some amount of choice is needed, but I don't always want somebody to say, what would you like to do? Overwhelming. Sometimes I want somebody to say, here are 3 things we could do. What do you think? And sometimes I want somebody to just say, we could do this or this, right? It depends on how activated I am, right? Can I deal with 2 choices or maybe I want 4? And there are some times when I am fully regulated and joyful and ready to engage. And I want somebody to say, what would you like to do today? And I'm ready to this abundance of offerings. But again, that the nervous system lets you know how much choice is needed, right? So, again, I can become very anxious if I have no roadmap to follow, right? I don't even know what the choices are, right? Help me out here. So I think a menu is really helpful most of the time. And then connection. If we go to connection, we should probably start there. I always end there because the nervous system needs connection, right? In order to function with well-being, it really needs connection to other safe mammals, but we also need connection, an internal connection to all of the parts of me that are alive, need connection to the world around me and to spirit, right? In whatever form that might take. Those 4 pathways of connection are important to remember, to have some ability. My connection to spirit is always emerging. That's the one that's least concrete for me, right? But and that's okay. Somebody else may have a real great connection to spirit and the connection to self is still emerging. Doesn't matter, but connection is necessary, and connection with a safe human is what we're longing for.
Yeah. Okay, let's jump to that. The pathways of connection, because I think one of the first things that comes up for me as an introvert, as somebody who needs a lot of quiet and solitude,
Yep.
Connection and even community sometimes can be tricky for me.
Absolutely.
And I sometimes kind of push against that.
Yep.
But the way that you talk about the way this is framed in polyvagal theory, even I can relax into connection. And it's because there's 4 different pathways. And you're very careful to say it's like a spectrum, and we're kind of constantly balancing. So there's no right equation 25% each way, right?
Right. Exactly.
And it's no hard and fast, this is how you do it 24/7, 365 forever.
So a couple of things I want to say there. One, I love there's no, one way. I always say there's no right way or wrong way. There's the way of your nervous system.
Yes.
So you need to get to know your nervous system, right? And no human can be regulated all the time. It's unachievable. It's impossible. And it's not desirable. Right? It's not, that doesn't make a full life. What we're trying to do is be able to recognize, when have I moved into that anxious pathway or that shutdown pathway, and can I find my way back? Right? It's the finding the way back that creates resilience, and then we have more capacity in the world, and we experience more wellness. So that's what we want to remember. Don't try to never be anxious, because it's impossible and would not be good. Anxiety is there for a reason.
Yes.
Right?
We're going to come back to this point, because I like to make this point over and over and over again, because we think if I could just be done with anxiety, I would be good, right? So we'll go back to that point for sure.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And so, yes, these 4 pathways, and I like when you said the connection with others. You call yourself an introvert, right? I love the continuum that we have. It started off between solitude and social. Those are the 2 ends of the continuum. But then on the other side of solitude is loneliness, right? And we have to recognize, because I too love the solitude end of that continuum. I spend more time there than the social end. But I have to recognize, when is my solitude turning into loneliness? Because solitude is nourishing, loneliness is dangerous and draining. Just to be able to notice, again, it's that subtle moment, right? Oh, yeah, I think I've been alone too long. I'm beginning to feel, sort of shut away from, rather than sitting nicely in solitude. So play with that. The other end, the social end, there's lovely research that says there's social, and then there's too social, right? For all of us. And for many people, they can go very, very far into the social end, but they still are going to find a too social place. And too social, you will begin to feel that pulling back, or that run away, or that get me out of here experience of a survival state. But along the middle, the solitude to social, we all travel that place. And I think people often think, if I'm not doing social in this way, I'm wrong. Right? There's no one way to do social. Like, I really enjoy being around small groups, 2, 3, 4 people. right?
Mhm.
That's okay for me. But put me in a large one, and it's like, oh, that's a little too much for my system, right? So when we know that about ourselves, again, it's this befriending, it's this self-compassion, and I can reach for connection in the way that fits for me.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, I've noticed for myself, I'd rather either be, I also like small groups. There's something for me though that's very exciting and nourishing about large groups, like particularly like at a concert
Oh
where
yeah.
I'm not responsible.
Oh yeah. Well, there's the clarifier. I'm not responsible for anyone. Yes.
Yeah,
Then
it's
you can
like
enjoy being.
whoever else, 21 Pilots or Panic at the Disco, somebody else is in charge of us having a good time.
Right. Right. And again, those are sort of the qualifiers, the concrete ways your system says, here's how I feel safe and connected, that we each have to get to know.
Yes.
Right. Because other people may feel really love to be in large groups and feel safe and excited there when they are in charge.
Yes.
Right. So again, it's this, how does your system let you know, here are the conditions that allow me to be social, right? Or to be in solitude. Solitude is very hard for many people.
It is.
It feels scary. It feels lonely rather than nourishing. It feels draining. So again, dipping into moments of solitude, and you do mindfulness, right? So moments of mindfulness are often even a tiny moment is where we start.
Right.
Right? Because mindfulness in some ways brings that quiet, that stillness, which
Right.
for the nervous system is very challenging, very challenging.
Right.
Mm.
Right. Especially when we're seeking, and this is why I like that there's 4 pathways to connection. It's not just connect with other people or don't, because
Right.
I think that's where our minds go.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, we love either or, don't we? Yeah.
It's so
Yeah.
easy. Just
Yeah.
tell me which one it is. Put it
Yeah.
in a bucket.
Yeah.
But there's these others. There's a connection to self,
Mhm.
right? There's the connection to spirit that you mentioned, right?
Yeah.
The world. So there's other ways to connect. It doesn't just depend on us being kind of
Right.
this Instagram perfect highlight reel
Yes.
social butterfly that
No.
is put
Yeah.
forth in the media.
And the connection to the world, I think, is lovely because nature is so welcoming, right? And everybody has their own sort of place or kind of nature they like to be in, right? I'm an ocean person. I don't know what you are, but
Mountains.
mountains, see, yeah, people are, I have a friend who's a desert person. I go, how does that happen? But okay, right?
Yep.
It's fascinating. And the connection with nature, the research tells us, can be actually out in nature, can be a memory of nature, or can be looking at images of nature. And we still feel that connection. So for people who can't, they have here's what I love, but I can't get to it. That's okay. You can get to it through online or through an image. So, and the nervous system still loves that, which I think is so beautiful.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
just saw this incredible study about how first of all, how our brains are wired to really love, and we just get like juiced up by bird song.
Yes, I read that too.
Did
It was
you?
lovely. Yes.
And it's
Yeah.
like, but it doesn't even have to be real bird song.
No,
You can
right.
use it on your phone.
Exactly. Exactly. Yep. Yep.
And it
Yeah.
was like an 8-hour boost,
It was amazing.
right?
Yeah.
It is amazing. So it's
Yeah.
I'm always fascinated when people kind of claim they aren't nature people.
Mm.
And it's like, or they don't love the outdoors. And I'm like, okay, well, you don't have to like go hiking and camp for days on end, right? In order to be,
Yeah.
just go outside and take a deep breath,
Yeah,
right? This can look
look at the
simple.
stars. Feel the
Yes.
sun, feel the rain, whatever it is. Yeah. So and then again, I do love that things can be so simple. We make it into such a big production, right? They can just be tiny micro moments. And really, that is how the nervous system reorganizes in tiny moments. And it's nice for people to recognize that I don't have to do this great big thing. I don't have to go on a month-long retreat to move my nervous system in a different way.
Yeah.
Right? Tiny moments every day, and remembering or marking those moments. Because they happen all the time. Right. When we actually bring them into explicit awareness, then it boosts what happens for us. So yeah, I did want to talk from a connection to self, and just because we talk in parts all the time, people think it's kind of, we're not talking about personalities or dissociative identity, any of that. It's like we often say, so there's a part of me that really wants to meet my friends for lunch, and there's another part of me that's feeling anxious already. We talk this way all the time.
Yep.
And so being able to listen inside is that connection to all of the experiences that I have.
Yes. And that's, I teach, and my people have heard me say a lot, the undercurrent of most of our work is in building that relationship with yourself, that awareness, which is in and of itself a mindfulness practice, right?
Yeah.
Can I just, and we'll talk about this in a moment, can I just tune in?
Right.
Right. Can I get reflective for a moment? And like you said, it doesn't have to be a month-long retreat. This does not have to be anything fancy. In fact, my lowest brow, but probably most popular teaching is bathroom meditations. Every time you go to the bathroom, take 5 deep breaths.
Yeah, perfect. Look at you. Yeah.
That's it. Right?
Yeah. Well, I'm going to add, because the nervous system, breath is a direct route to changing your state, which is why breath practices are so powerful. They're powerful regulators. They're also powerful activators. So we want to just remember, your nervous system might take the type 5 deep breaths practice and totally dysregulate. Right. So we're always saying, how does it land for you? Right. But one thing that we do all the time, every human, is sigh. Right. Humans sigh multiple times spontaneously, multiple times an hour. And so I like to think, can you catch a sigh? Can you notice a sigh? Right. Even just notice it. Oh, because sighs have been called a resetter of your system. It's a momentary break in your thoughts, which is so lovely if you're spinning. And it's a momentary interruption of a state, right? So I often will ask people to then intentionally sigh, which is just an easy practice. So if you're feeling that sympathetic anger, have a sigh of frustration. You're going to have one anyway, but do it. Embrace it. Do it. If you're anxious, a sigh of anxiety, right? And if you're in that collapse, a sigh of hopelessness.
Yes.
Be with it. And then if you get to that place of regulation, I have, first there's a sigh of relief. Thank God I got here. But then there can be a sigh of contentment. Oh, I'm staying here for just a moment. So sighing, and just because sigh is an out loud sound, right? And you make the sigh with your exhalation. And as you exhale, you bring more regulation into your nervous system. That's the science. Exhalation, regulation. So just sigh. Right?
Yeah, that's it. And I always caveat my long, deep breathing with, your body will inhale when it needs to. You don't have to work for that.
Exactly.
But it will not ever fully exhale without intentionality.
I love that.
Right. So being willing, and you're right, there's also kind of an asterisk here of pay attention, because this can be activating and triggering for people. Pay attention to, can you fully exhale and just hang out in the bottom, the emptiness of an exhale,
right?
Just for a moment, because your body will reach for that next inhale. But I know some of us get a little graspy for that.
And I love how you teach that, though, and I do the same, and say, just you don't not have to work to inhale. Your body will do it for you, and knowing that your body will automatically do it for you is really helpful. I will say, I was once teaching where there was a big group of long-term meditators.
Yes.
So I did this practice, just exhale and just wait, and your body will inhale. I'm used to working with complex trauma survivors who inhale immediately.
Yes.
And it was like, oh my God, did I kill them all? What's going on? It was like, they finally did, but I thought, oh, you guys are good at the
breathe.
So there's a whole range of how long it takes your body to bring that inhale.
There is, and there's just a little nod to my people who are a little resistant to meditation, which I get it.
Yeah.
It rarely sounds good to me too, and I'm a meditation teacher. There is something to be said for the practice, right? Yes. Long-term meditators do have a different relationship with their breath, with sitting in discomfort, right? With monitoring and noticing their nervous system.
Yes.
It works. It works.
Yeah, and practice works.
Yes.
Practice helps shape the system of any kind of practice, whatever it is. Because when, practice, if we think about practice as a repeating pattern, we practice anxiety,
Yes.
and that pathway gets stronger.
Yes.
So as we practice a moment of interruption, that pathway gets stronger. Our nervous system is always taking in and shaping, right? And it doesn't say good, bad, right? It simply says safe, not safe, survive now. And it's going to do whatever it feels is necessary in the moment. So I agree. My notice and name practice is sort of a micro moment of mindfulness. Notice what's happening and name it, right? Yeah.
Yeah. I love, yeah, I've said often, whatever you're doing, you're practicing, whatever you're practicing, you're getting better at.
Right.
And we have to be aware, and this, no judgment, right? There's nothing's gone wrong here. If you've been feeling anxious for weeks or months or years or decades at this point, but just notice it's probably going to take a minute for us to unwind that, because it has become a practice. Right.
Yeah.
So unlearning and then repatterning, that's a practice.
Exactly. If I have been in an anxious pathway for a long time, it's a habitual survival response now. And the minute there's a familiar cue that brings anxiety, I just go right into that pathway. I don't even know I'm doing it. So it's in the slowing down and beginning to notice that we begin to interrupt the habitual patterns. And it's the interruption first, and then we begin to shape in new ways. But the hopefulness about understanding the nervous system is knowing it will reshape. Right? It will reshape. It may take longer than you want, but it will reshape.
Usually.
Usually. Yeah, true. I mean,
Spoiler
I can't
alert.
Tomorrow or in an hour, right? Yeah. And notice the tiny nuanced difference along the way. That's the other thing we want to do. Right? I notice I'm less this, or I'm more this, or I didn't respond in the way I usually do. I responded this way instead. The tiny differences, right? I'm still anxious, but wow, it took me a lot longer to get to panic than it usually does. Or I could hang out in worry, right? I mean, these are all the ways oh, my nervous system is beginning to shape differently.
Right. And again, there's that moment of mindfulness, of awareness, of noticing what's happening. I think our lives we think we're so busy. We're not busy.
Yeah, well,
we're just not that busy. We think we're very busy, though. We're very important.
Yes.
We're rushing around.
Yes.
We're all holding everything up, just us alone. But so bringing and then none of it has to take any time. Do this while you're driving. Do it while you're waiting in line. Do it while you're cooking dinner. Do it right before you fall asleep. These moments, because it changes things.
Yes. Yeah.
It matters.
Yeah. And find someone to do it with.
Yes.
Right? Take a moment, maybe, so many families do at dinner, what was the best part of your day or whatever. Just take a moment and just all sigh together and then eat. Right. I mean, just something simple you do in that co-regulating way. Right. Or with a friend, have a time where, let's just, meet online, or let's, be on the phone or send a message together at the same time, and just bring attention to this moment, right, of connection or whatever. It can be very simple, but it has to be explicit, because the nervous system is implicitly working all the time. But until we bring it to explicit awareness, it's just going to keep doing what it does. So it's the explicit piece of it, the notice, name, be able to turn toward with a bit of regulation so that we can then work with it.
Okay, let's talk for a moment about resilience. This is something we could spend a lot of time on. And my listeners have heard me say things like, anxiety is not a problem, but thinking anxiety is a problem.
I love
it.
Go. Yeah. Well, anxiety is your nervous system trying to give you a message.
Yes.
That's what it is. And if we can listen underneath the symptom of anxiety, what is my nervous system trying to tell me? Then I have a chance of doing something differently, right? But when I'm stuck in the anxiety, I'm stuck in the symptom, right?
Right.
So yes, and resilience is a nervous system that dysregulates and comes back to regulation. Every time you move into anxiety, come back, you strengthen your resilience, right?
Okay. Say that again.
Every time
That's important.
right, you move into anxiety and come back to regulation, you become more resilient. Your resilience is strengthened, right? And if you're working with kids, if you have kids and you're trying to keep your kids from experiencing anxiety or something bad happening, or getting angry, or any of those things. But my youngest grandchild, she's 9, she says, big feelings, grandma, big feelings. Right? Those big feelings, when they have them and come back to regulation and make some sense out of them, they are more resilient beings. So trying to protect your kids from all that stuff, you are not helping them build resilience. Right? Relationships that have ruptures and repairs are resilient relationships. They're made from resilient beings. So that's what we want.
Yes. Yeah, because I feel like my generation was given a very weird parenting memo.
Yeah.
Which was like, it's like, do most things for them, but also don't let them experience anything tricky or hard.
Yeah. Can we rewrite that memo? Because that's not a nervous system healthy memo. Yeah.
We're not preparing. And listen, of course, we don't want our children to be in pain or to suffer or to get their hearts broken or to have a friend wrong. That, of course not. And yet, life, this is part of it. So the elementary school, middle school, brush ups or tricky conversations or failures and rejections, prepare them very appropriately for what's coming. And the more important thing that we could do, the more supportive thing would be to sit with them in that pain. Right? You said something in the very beginning about, like, if all goes well, as soon as we're ushered into the world, we're met with a regulated nervous system. And this is what we could offer our children.
Yes. And this is really hard to offer as well. I just, I was a parent, like decades ago now, but I'm watching my children parent, and it's like, oh, this is hard work. And I think you all have a very challenging parenting paradigm that you're in right now. So I get that. Mine was different when I was, but still, none of us are regulated all the time with our kids, right? And to let people know that's okay. And this lovely work Ed Tronick did around attachment, his work says that really to create this secure attachment, people, our parents and kids, are in this attuned place about 30% of the time. 30%. Can you do 30%? Probably 1 in 3. Yeah, probably. Right. It's what makes the difference is that you recognize the rupture and you come back and make some kind of a repair. And I think that's what we're not taught to do either. We're not taught how to repair. Right? So the first thing is, if I can be regulated, can I just sit with this dysregulated child? Or, be very active, sympathetically dysregulated. There's tons of energy, right? Angry, anxious, can't sit still, all those things. So they don't want me to just be, oh, sweetie, it's okay. Because that's like a miss, right? But I can be, wow, I can feel all this energy. How about we, whatever, let's go outside. Let's go for a run. Do you want to kick a ball around? What do you want to do? Because you've got energy galore, but it's not purposeful. So we just want to organize in some way, right? In dorsal, then you do want to say, I'm just right here with you. Don't need to do anything. I'm just here. I'm here, right? Because that's meeting the energy where you need to. But don't try that in sympathetic, because he'll be like, what? You got to bring a lot of energy to the party.
You do. You have to meet people where they're at. And I've told people, as a meditation teacher who works with anxious people, if you're feeling highly activated, that's not the moment to sit down and meditate. Right. So if I've ever had people, which is most people that I start working with meditation wise, and they say, this doesn't work for me. let's try it outside of that moment,
Right.
more as a training, more as a practice, so that when you're in that moment, this is something you can lean on that's already in there. Because you're right, whether it's you that's activated, whether you're with somebody, child, neighbor, coworker, partner, who's activated, you do have to meet them where they're at.
Yeah.
And
caveat, you have to be regulated to do that.
Yeah.
Right.
Which is the tricky part.
Right. Because I have people say, well, but if I'm sympathetic and they're sympathetic, what happens? I said, no. You meet them from regulation, but bring the energy that is a match. So yeah.
That's such a good. I was out on the trail the other day walking the dog, and I saw this dad negotiating with his probably 4 or 5-year-old son, who was clearly done with the bike ride.
Yep, done. Yep.
Right. Bike was on the side. Kid was in a puddle. And dad's like, can we just get to Starbucks? You could tell dad was like dying for coffee. It's like,
Starbucks,
we're almost there, kiddo. Right. But the kid wasn't having a fit.
Yeah.
Right. And the dad, whether he knew it or not, he was actually being really skillful with his kid, because he was meeting him where he was at. There wasn't any of this, like, you better get up right now. Like, right. He was just like, yeah, should we walk the bike? Do you want to ride the bike some more?
Yes, see, choice. Connection.
Choice. Context for like,
just Starbucks.
Headed.
We're almost there. Right.
We're almost there. Like, there's treats and air conditioning right there. Right.
That is beautiful. Yeah.
And there was just no urgency on the dad's part.
Yes.
That's
a person who's really regulated, and there's all the time in the world. Right. Yeah. We'll get there when we get there. Because when the nervous system says no, like the little guy's nervous system is saying no, right? You can't do this. You can't power through. The nervous system is clearly saying, this does not feel safe to me. This does not feel okay. So we need to shift that equation. How do we bring in more cues of safety? Right. Which is what God was doing. Because it really is just an equation. When the cues of danger outweigh the cues of safety, we're in a survival state.
Right. Okay. This is where I was going to go next, actually, is this protection versus connection. And this is, again, and you've said this a couple of times, this work isn't necessarily easy, but this is a really, really simple equation to check in with yourself. And if you have your kiddo out on a bike and he's just not doing what you want him to be doing,
right.
This is another tool for you to access to say, okay, where are we at? Right. So let's talk about this, the cues for safety, the cues for danger.
So again, this comes through neuroception, right? So inside, outside, between, that's where the cues of safety and danger come. So in this moment, we usually start with the cues of danger because something's disrupted what's happening. What is going on? What are you noticing in your body? What's happening in the environment that feels not okay? And what is there? Maybe what am I doing that's landing in a not okay way? Right? Because I know I'm trying to be a resource for this other person, but their nervous system's having none of it. Right. So tell me exactly what's happening, because concretely we can begin to change that. But then we also want to look for, are there cues of safety in this moment that maybe we aren't looking at, we aren't finding, because our nervous system finds the danger and then ignores the safety. It's just normal human experience, right? Is there something happening here that does feel sort of welcoming? Right. And can we list those? Right. Because we want more of that.
Yes.
Right. And we want to reduce the cues of danger, and not so they're all gone, but just shift the balance enough so the cues of safety outweigh the cues of danger. Then we're going to either get on or walk the bike to Starbucks. Right. But when the cues of danger are outweighing the cues of safety, you're not moving me.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And we see this, check in, like, if you think of just over the past week or month, if there's, something's happened at work, maybe you've had a spat with your partner, something's come up while you're just out and about in the world, and like your spidey sense kind of goes off, right? It's like those, right. That's the neuroception that I think a lot of times do we glorify thinking. We just think what we think is so important, right?
Well, it's the brain's job to make sense of the information it's getting from the nervous system. And we are storytelling beings. Humans are storytellers. It's what we are. And so when the brain gets that spidey sense, it makes up a pretty fantastic story. And then we simply believe that that's the truth. Right. Yeah. We
We're
have
like,
no
that's
large
it.
perspective. Yep.
And
Yep.
then we tell that story to whoever we're with, and
Mhm.
they're like, that's right. Now we have validation. And we stay so much
Yeah.
up here in the perceptive.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So when we remember, it's this neuroceptive. If
Yeah.
you're at the grocery store, if you're talking with somebody and something feels unsafe,
Mhm.
and a lot of times your brain can't make sense of it and point to it and say it's this
Right.
thing,
Right. Right.
but you just know.
Yeah. Yeah. And what I invite people to do is if you get a strong sense of unsafety, because my clients were always trying to figure it out. I said, don't figure it out in the moment. Just follow what your nervous system says. And then let's go back and reflect on it when it's not so intense.
Mhm.
So it often seems crazy what we do, what we think, what we feel, but our neuroception is giving a message and the nervous system is simply taking an action. So I remember one day, and it was long, long time ago, I was in the grocery store. I had a half-filled grocery cart, and I was totally overwhelmed with the world and neuroception of danger. I have no idea why. I left the cart and I walked out of the grocery store.
Mhm.
And I was able to go home and sit and say, wow, what just happened? And then I could deconstruct it and figure out what is going on in my life that I can't make it through the grocery store and actually check out. Because I do need those groceries, by the way.
Still got to do that.
In the fridge, but it was like, and my nervous system overwhelmed me. I couldn't have done anything else. But I think if we listen when it speaks softly, we get the information needed. It will speak louder and louder. It will take more intense action to get your attention. And we'd rather not go to that place. That's a panic attack. It's gone to its extreme.
Yep.
We can listen when there's the beginning of worry, the slight can't focus, the slight, what's going on. Then we can be with and we can get the information. Yeah.
Yes. I've said this a lot to my people too, of our bodies are constantly communicating with us.
Yeah.
But most of us, and again, we live in a culture, we live in a society that has very much glorified and sold the message of powering through, right, keep on keeping on, you can do it, it's fine if you didn't get enough sleep or don't have all of that. That's the messaging in our society. And to be honest, doing this work, it's our job, it's an invitation, I guess is a better way to say it, to key into those messages before they become screams.
Yes.
Because they're there. We know, oh, I'm a little too tired, I should maybe say no to this social engagement, or this project is one too many at work, I need to have that conversation with my boss. Right. Versus what we're taught, well, you know what a good employee would do. Right. You can't say no to so-and-so for Friday night because they're going to be disappointed.
Right.
And these are the kinds of, when we start kind of zooming out and seeing like, what are we up to? We're getting these whispers.
Yeah. And we can do that in just the way you said, in a large sense. We can sort of reflect on, we have general patterns, right? I don't say no to, or I always say yes to. We can begin to and always and never and should are all survival energy words.
Oh yeah.
Invitation is a regulating word. It's demand is a survival word. So if you feel you have to, right, then that's not coming from that place of safety and connection. Right. So we can reflect and think, what are my patterns? Right. We have this sense of reciprocity is what we want, this back and forth, with others. And sometimes I get out of balance because I'm always saying yes to something else and I forget me. And sometimes it goes the other way. I'm, selfishly paying attention to me, forget others. So we have to have this balance, and we're trying to find that. And our nervous system is a great guide in that, right? Our brains, less so, because our brains, are again informed by whatever the environments we live in, the work culture, the family culture, all of that come in, and then yes, it says, well, you can't say no. You have to do this. People will judge you if you don't, whatever it is. So yeah, we want to take stock of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
again, there's the practice piece,
Mhm.
because
Mhm.
man, I know it sounds good that like we could crack this code and we would just like be done.
You know.
But it
Right.
is moment by moment, right? Day by day. And
Yeah.
even seasons of our life. I invite my people to really consider,
Yeah.
okay, if you've got elementary aged kids,
Mhm.
you're in one specific certain season of your life that's going to look very different
Yeah.
when your kids go to high school, I'm finding out, right? And then
Absolutely.
it's going to look different when they leave the house, which
Yeah.
was different than when they were newborns.
Yes.
So this is that context piece again, perhaps, right? Of like, read the room.
Mhm.
It
Mhm.
could be this week. Maybe you have a work project going on. Maybe you have a sick kid at home, something. So that's happening.
Mhm.
But maybe it's a larger season of your life, like 10 or 20 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what's happening.
Yeah. And that's the beautiful both and. We get
Yeah,
into
yeah, yeah.
either or, all nothing into both and. It's both what's happening now and what season of life I'm in. It's both, right? And so we pay attention to both, right?
Yes.
My season of my life that I'm in is I get to watch my children be parents. Very
Mhm.
different season of life. It comes with its own challenges, I'll tell you, but
For sure.
it's interesting. So I have these moments when I just spent a week with one of my daughters and one grandson, which was of this moment. And then there's the larger
Mhm.
perspective and season. And I think looking at both really helps. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
My dad says, he says, parents have a business plan and grandparents are white collar criminals.
Exactly. Yes. Yes. I often get that. My daughter will say, "Why are you taking her side?" I'll tell you this one, and she'll kill me if she hears it. But it was so cute because my 9-year-old granddaughter was eating a sandwich and it had pickles on it, and her mom was trying to tell her you have to have vegetables too, and my granddaughter said, "Pickles are a vegetable," and so she wanted me to weigh in, and I said, "I'm sorry, I'm going with her on this." This one, forget the peppers and all that. Pickles are a vegetable, and I will pay for that forever. But I said, that's okay. I'm a grandma. I get to do that. Right?
Right. Her business plan and your white collar criminal.
Actually. So I loved it. I loved it. I was like, oh, well, yes. But that's
Right.
that, a little playful, a little joyful, that, the connection
Yes.
between grandparents and grandkids is different than the connection between parents and kids, but they're equally is I don't know, delicious and joyful and
Yeah.
loving, and just in different ways. And again, that's that sense of there's no one way to do this,
Yeah.
right? No one way. And I liked when you said before, you were saying, I can't do this, I can't meditate or whatever.
Mhm.
My favorite word is yet. Just put yet on that.
Yeah.
I can't do this yet.
Yeah.
Right? We're
Yeah.
moving towards whatever it is. Yeah.
Right. I'm willing to,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
There's when we open, it's like just cracking the door open a little bit.
Yeah.
There's an
The language
openness.
has to be inviting,
Yeah.
not I need to or I should,
Mhm.
but I'm willing to, right?
Mhm.
Possible that.
I get to. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I liked how you said, kind of categorize those earlier of here's like shut down, right? Should, have to, obligated,
Yeah.
I need
Yeah.
to.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Versus this more open,
Yeah.
there's a freedom. This is a litmus test I'm using a lot right
Mm.
now, which is this like, do I feel free?
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
Which has been kind of this, it's almost like putting yet at the end. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
as I'm saying yes to this, do I feel free?
Right. Right.
Or do I feel stuck?
Yeah, those are great words, free or stuck. I simply go with this is, does this fill or drain?
Oh,
Right.
yeah. Mhm.
Easy. I mean, you just want something easy in the moment to make an assessment. Right.
Yes.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
sometimes it feels draining. We say yes anyway. We do that often, right?
Mhm.
We override what the nervous system's telling us. Doesn't mean you're stuck there. You can go back and revisit.
Yeah.
And you can do one of two things. You can either find a way to go through with what you said yes to that doesn't feel as though you are discounting your nervous system,
Mhm.
right? To say, yeah, I get that this might not have been the best choice. I think I have to go through with it now, and in the future, I'll do
Yeah.
it differently, right? That's or we can revisit and say, I really don't think that I can do this, and I'm going to find a way to not do it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
you're never stuck.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. We're allowed to change our minds, as it turns out.
Amazing, isn't it?
It kind of is.
Yeah.
It's revolutionary. We forget that part.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, Deb, was there anything that I should have asked you that I didn't? Anything that we should have touched on together?
Oh, well, one of my favorite things recently, and it's been sort of coming up a lot in work, is the concept of glimmers.
Oh, yes. Yes,
If we could
yes.
just talk about that for a minute, because I think glimmers are within reach, right?
Yes.
And for people who are stuck in anxiety or anger or shutdown, or, we want people to know we're not discounting that. So it's not an instead of, it's another both and, because the nervous system can really wonderfully be holding all of that unresolved stuff and keeping you stuck in survival. And notice a micro moment of okayness, which is a glimmer. It's a micro moment of okayness.
Yes.
And if we can, just notice those, they begin to accumulate in your system. And it's like a practice, but it's a tiny practice. They accumulate and begin to give you more access to that regulating energy when you need it.
Yes. Yeah,
So-
I talk a lot in mindfulness about kind of holding sometimes seemingly contradictory things,
Yeah.
right? To be, if not equally true, at least like there's room for both,
Yes. Yeah.
right? And
Another
it's
both hand. Yeah.
another both and, right? We are wildly sophisticated, complicated beings.
Yes.
And this happens a lot.
Yes.
And I love that word glimmer.
Yeah. Yeah. It kind of lets you feel the tininess of it, doesn't it?
Yes.
And then to know that it's tiny but powerful, I think is really what we want to remember. And it's it can be anything. It could be hearing a bird sing, right?
Yeah.
It could be seeing your kid, smile, or sharing a laugh, or just having your cup of coffee with a moments of peace. 5 seconds before the world comes at me, whatever that. They're tiny things, and the thing that I invite people to do is notice those moments.
Yeah.
Maybe even have a way you share them with other people. I have people who have glimmer buddies, glimmer groups, and they just kind of send a message, glimmer of the day.
Oh, I love it.
Because again, connection helps build that capacity. So yeah, just find your glimmers.
Glimmers. Yeah, it's such a great word. It does, because it just embodies exactly what we're going for here, which is tiny, doable, accessible, right? It's not called a formal, stuffy, big retreat practice.
Right.
Just a glimmer.
Right.
Just a glimmer.
And they happen all the time. They're all around us. Right.
Yeah.
And when you find one, I had clients who it was a novel idea that something good was in the world. They found a glimmer, and organically they begin to look for more.
Yes.
So it's also an easy practice. I'm always looking for things that are easy.
Oh, right. Please. The world's hard enough. Life is hard.
Right.
Let's make something easy.
Exactly.
And it's like, be careful what you're looking for, because you will find it.
Yes.
And if you're looking for glimmers,
you'll find
you will. They're everywhere.
Yeah.
They're everywhere. And if you're looking for why things are hard, or anxiety inducing or challenging or scary, there's a lot of that stuff out there too.
There is. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So be careful what you look for. And to kind of loop this back to what we were talking about earlier with practicing, it's like whatever you're doing, you're practicing. Whatever you're practicing, you're getting better at. And these little moments,
tiny moments.
Yeah.
All you need. Yeah.
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 Deb, this was such a wonderful hour with you. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here.
I had fun. It was great fun. Really?
It was great fun.
Yeah,
and connection, and just Poppy's asleep now.
Oh, yay, Poppy.
So it worked for her. Tell everybody a little bit more about where they can find you, your offerings, your wonderful books, all that good stuff.
So the best place to come is rhythmofregulation.com, which is my website. And you can find, lots of things there. I actually have some meditations, even though it's hard for me, but
yes,
some nervous system meditations, and a lot of podcast recordings, other resources, and yeah, come there and join the newsletter if you want, and it will be fun to have your listeners join in, coming to see what's going on. Yeah, kind of never know where I'm going, so it's kind of a mystery. It's like, oh, what pulls my attention now? So I'm doing a workbook that goes with Anchored at the moment. So
wonderful.
That will be nice for people to bring it into workable form. Yeah.
Well, and we should say there's a lot in Anchored. There are so many little exploration practices.
Yeah. And we called them explorations because it was like less challenging than practice, right?
I get it.
Explorations. Yeah, I know. So the workbook is in process now. And
wonderful.
Yeah.
Good. Well, I'm on your list and happen, and we'll stay tuned. Yes. Thank you again so much for being here, for taking some time to hang out with us this afternoon.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful, wonderful rest of the day.
Thank you.
Do you have someone to help you with your stress, anxiety, worry, and overwhelm? If not, I would love to be your coach. The Fierce Calm Project is my virtual coaching program where we get to go in on topics like this one, and I can help you apply these lessons to your life so that you're creating your own transformation. We do live coaching calls, guided meditations, on-demand yoga classes. We hold book club where we read books your neighborhood book club won't, and there's lots of bonus content that I've created just for you. When you're ready to take what you're learning on the podcast to a whole other level, then come on over and check out the Fierce Calm Project at kellyhanlonmccormick.com/Fierce Calm Project.